we're sitting there around the fire, and all of a sudden my friend Michael got hit by a rock, and he freaked out. He's like, oh no, oh my God, what happened? Then we all got serious, and me and the girls, and we're all like, uh-oh, what's going on? About 15, 20 feet away from us, there was a little flat spot, and he goes over there and he starts looking around, and he finds rock and he throws it back, and then something threw a rock at him again. And they're throwing rocks, and the rocks keep on coming back. And all of a sudden, one of them saw one, and they're all, oh my God, look at that, you see it? And the other one saw it too.
This is the Cryptid Creature Show. I am Brian, and with me, as always, my co-host Todd. What's up, buddy?
Brian, tonight's guest is Dan Lindholm. And Dan has what's called Big Truth on YouTube.
Big Truth.
Big Truth. Dan had a couple encounters, maybe even more. Might have seen something else, but he definitely had a terrifying night with some Bigfoot creatures, him and his friends. We're going to bring him on and see what the heck happened with him to learn about Big Truth. So, are you ready to bring him on, sir?
Yeah, man, let's get him. Hey, Dan, how you doing?
Doing great. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Dan, thanks for being here with us tonight.
Oh, no problem at all.
We'd been talking a little bit prior to this, discussing about you had a Bigfoot encounter. Tell us about what Big Truth is before we get into your story.
Sure. Way back in about 2011, I got involved in the Bigfoot community. Right about that time, the Melba Ketchum thing was going on with the DNA. And I had these stories from way back. I had my own stories and also some stories from friends and stuff. And I figured if I was ever going to get them out and, if anybody was ever going to be interested, I better do it because pretty soon Bigfoot's going to be discovered, So I started the channel, Big Truth channel on YouTube to start telling my own stories. And I had the one major encounter when I was 18 years old. That's like, it's a crazy story. It's a great one. But I've also had some other encounters, and those are documented there in my Northern California Sasquatch stories. And eventually over the years, back in, I think was like 2017, I took all those stories and I wrote a book. So it's available on Amazon, the Northern California Sasquatch stories, straight from the YouTube. But I tried to include more detail than what's on the YouTube channel in the books.
Okay, great. Where did your encounter happen when you were 18?
That was in Northern California, just north of Clear Lake at a place called Pinnacle Rock. This is in Lake County. And I was just hanging out with my buddy at the First Street Bridge in Upper Lake, California. I was 18. I think he was 16. And our buddy came up. His name was Les, and he had this Jeep, and he didn't have any headlights at all. And he told us that he didn't have any headlights, first thing. But after he told us that he was headed up to Pinnacle Rock. And I've been there before. I really love it. It's like a really beautiful view. You can see Clear Lake down below you. And then if you look back the other way, you see all back to Snow Mountain and in the coastal range there. You can see a long ways. It's an old fire lookout way up on top of the mountain. So I was like, yeah. And he also had these two girls with him. So we were, going, yeah, right on, let's go. And so my buddy Michael, he was, like I say, he was only like 16. So we had to stop by his grandparents' house to see if he could go. And he comes running out and says, yeah, I can go. So the five of us head up the hill in Les's old Jeep with no headlights. And we're just a bunch of kids having a good time. I think Les was 19 and Michael was 16 and everybody else was in between. So it was just a bunch of kids, And we get up there and there's like an old fire trail that goes to the old fire lookout. And they piled up dirt. So we're going up over with the Jeep and, it's kind of a gnarly little drive in there. And we get there and I say, let's go down to the end of the road because there's only, maybe 7,500 yards down the road. There's like a little cul-de-sac and it stops and it's a cliff and it's a totally different view than what you get from Pinnacle Rock. So I want to go down there and check it out. I've been there before and nobody wanted to go. So I was like, well, I'm going to go down there and I'll be back, So I went down there and immediately when I left these guys, I was getting this feeling of being watched. And I was like, whoa, and just the tingles. And so I just assumed that those guys were messing with me, that they were trying to, scare me or whatever. So I go out there and I'm looking at the view, and boy, that feeling was so strong. It's like I knew they were just right back there watching me. And I used to be an athlete. I used to play basketball and stuff. So I loaded up and I just spun around really fast, thinking I was going to catch them looking at me. And I see this something go behind the bush right there at the opening of the cul-de-sac, like, and it was tall. It was like, 6, 7 feet tall. I see this hair going sideways and something going behind the bush. It was black hair. And back then, all I knew about Bigfoot was that it was like an upright ape from In Search Of. That's all I knew. And I didn't even think Bigfoot for a second. I thought bear, not knowing. But now, if I saw it, I would have known better because it was hair. It was hair. It was stringy going out sideways as it jumped sideways. It wasn't fur. But anyway, I go back and I was like Olympic walking, getting back to the Pinnacle Rock where those guys were at. I was like, I didn't want to run because I know better than to run from something. So I get back there, and as I'm walking up the side of there's like stairs cut in the side of the rock, to get up there. And I'm coming up there, and oh man, that feeling of being watched was so strong. And I get up there and I go, man, I think I saw a bear. And Les, my buddy, he just right off the bat, he says, was it the monkey man? And I was all, no, man, I think it was a bear. And he goes, no, man, the monkey man. It's probably the monkey man. He's all, and he started telling us about it. He's all, they throw rocks at you and they do like whoop, whoop. And we're like going, what? And I guess he spent a lot of time out in the woods out there. And he was familiar with Bigfoot a lot more than any of the rest of us. And we're just going, no way. And I'm all laughing, going, no, man, I'm pretty sure it was a bear. It wasn't Bigfoot. And so we're all sitting there on top of Pinnacle Rock. And me and Michael and the two girls were all looking out towards the lake. And Les was facing us. And we're all, like just sitting down on the rock. There's no chairs or nothing. And all of a sudden, Les jumps up and runs past us, going backwards behind us. And he's going, did you see it? Did you see it? And we're like, see what? And he said, I saw there was a little one. He poked his head up and was looking at us. And when he went back there, he said he saw it scurry around the backside of the rock. And we're just going, no way, man, come on. And he totally was like convinced that he saw something. And we totally thought that he was just pulling our leg, So we're going, no way, man, come on. And he's all, no, I swear to God, I seen it. So we're like, all right. And it was starting to get dusk. So we go, let's go down there and we better collect up some wood because we're going to start a fire, And we go down there and it took us about 10 minutes. We all grabbed wood. And I mean, there wasn't no cut pieces of wood. We had big logs and stuff that we were dragging over there. So we get over there and me and Les are trying to start this fire. And Les only had like 4 matches. And that was it. We had no lighters, no nothing. And we get down there and we got this little bit of paper and stuff that he had in the Jeep. And, we get this and we light the first match and we put it down there and it starts the paper for a second and it goes out. And we're just like, oh no. And we're both down there like trying to block the wind and make sure we can start this fire. And we get to the next one and the match just goes out. And we're like, oh no. And right about then, this big freaking rock lands about 10 feet away from us and rolls right at our feet. And I mean, this thing's like probably 45 pounds or 50-pound piece of granite, like an egg-shaped piece of rock. And it came out of nowhere. And interestingly enough, I kind of forgot to tell, we were throwing rocks down the hill after that. After he saw the little thing, we heard something go down the back of the side of the mountain. And we started throwing rocks down there, like a bunch of big rocks. And they were rolling all the way down. I mean, it's a long way, just straight down. And it would either hit a tree and go bam, or it would roll all the way down. But anyway, we started trying to get the fire, and then this huge rock was thrown, and I think it was like a response from us throwing rocks down there. And I'm like, oh man. And I'm like, it must have fell off the rock up there. And Les is like, no, there's no way, because we're down the hill a little ways from, the actual Pinnacle Rock where we were starting the fire, where we're going to camp. It's like nobody knew what was going on, and we're like, all right. And then finally that third match, we got that fire going, and so we're trying to warm up, and it got cold quick, and it was August, so we didn't think, but we're at the very tops of the mountains, and it gets cold up there. So we're getting around the fire, and all of a sudden Les goes, "Ow!" He says, "Quit throwing rocks," and we're all laughing, going, "Oh, quit!" He's all, "No, I swear, I got hit by a rock." We're like, "Nuh-uh," and A couple minutes later, he's all, I said, quit throwing effing rocks. And he's yelling into the forest. And we're like, come on, man. And we're still thinking he's just joking around. And I mean, our minds couldn't even wrap, around the fact that it might be Bigfoot or something going on. We just assumed that it was just a bunch of bull. So we're sitting there around the fire, and all of a sudden my friend Michael got hit by a rock, and he freaked out. He's like, oh no, oh my God, what happened? And then we all got serious, and me and the girls, and we're all like, uh-oh, what's going on? And then we saw more rocks would hit the ground and roll like by the fire. And Michael goes about 15, 20 feet away from us. There was a little flat spot, and he goes over there and he starts looking around. He finds rock and he throws it back into the forest where they were throwing the rocks from. And then something threw a rock at him again, and he fucking picks it up, another rock, and throws it. And then Les goes over there with him, and they're sitting here having a rock fight with Bigfoot. And they're throwing rocks, and the rocks keep on coming back. And all of a sudden, one of them saw one, and they're all, oh my God, look at that. You see it? And the other one saw it too. And it was like a 12-year-old boy, Bigfoot, that was throwing rocks at him. And they're like, oh my gosh. And then about 5 minutes later, and this whole time I'm sitting here with the girls, they're like almost crying. They're so freaked out and scared. They don't know what's going on. And I was just trying to comfort the girls and, trying to make sure they were okay. And, and it's like gave us PTSD, all of us, because it's like going on and on and on, and you can't stop it. We couldn't leave because we had no headlights, and it was, I mean, I can imagine what it's like being in a foxhole in a war, and you can't get up and run away. You're going to end up dead, and all this stuff going on around you, and you can't stop it. And that's kind of what it was like. It was really scary. And these guys, they just keep throwing rocks. And all of a sudden, Michael, he starts running backwards and sideways at the same time. And he goes, twins. And Les saw it too. And I guess there was two of like the 12-year-old boy on each side of this bush. They saw him throwing rocks at the same time. And like, again, me and the girls didn't see it because, I was just trying to comfort them. And we weren't we were watching the guys throwing the rocks. We weren't watching into the bushes and stuff, and you couldn't see anything anyway, we were right by the fire. So then finally the rocks stopped coming. And so we're all standing around the fire and we're just talking, and there was a big log sticking out of the fire, and Les kicks it, like just to like make the fire, try to bring it up. And it just blazed up and all these sparks in the air, how fire will do a campfire. And when that happened, this girl, Susan, was right next to me, and she goes, oh my God. And I'm like, I see it too. And there was this like 8 foot tall, 4 foot wide freaking Bigfoot standing there, only about 35 feet away from us, right next to this tree, just standing there watching us. And we didn't see it until the light of the fire blazed up. And then we had no flashlight, no nothing. He had a flashlight, but it was one of those things where you hit it and it would start up and then it would go right back out. He had no batteries in it. And so we blazed up the fire again the best we could. And I went over there looking, and of course there was nothing. It was just like, oh my gosh. And then we had to try to sleep. And at first, me and the two girls and Michael were all trying to get into 2 sleeping bags that were together. And Michael got all frustrated and mad because there was no room. And he got out and he went over with Les, and they had like a blanket, him and Les sitting in the Jeep. And I was the lucky one that got to sleep with the 2 girls. But there really wasn't no sleeping going on because I don't know if I slept 15 minutes. I kept hearing these big footsteps, like on both sides of us. The rock is up above us, and it's kind of clear down to where we were at. And then down from there, it goes down and then to the road. And all that's kind of cleared out in a big path. But on both sides, it's all trees and everything. And you could hear these big footsteps, like all night long. Scared to death. Didn't know what was going to happen. And I was begging Les, come on, let's just go. I will walk in front of the Jeep and I'll tell you which way to go. And we can just go real slow. And let's just get out of this spot and get down the hill a little ways. And he refused to drive that Jeep without headlights, and man, we were all scared to death. And so first thing in the morning, like we had everything packed up and we were sitting in the Jeep waiting for there to be enough light so we could drive out of there. And we were just all scared to death. It's like when I first woke up, I was like, did you hear that? There was some elk or something. And Les is all, it was the monkey man. Don't you remember last night, all that stuff? And I mean, still after all that stuff went on, your mind tries to make it into something that and try to put it in a box, So I was still trying to explain away what was going on, even though I saw Bigfoot, which also I didn't even know it was a Bigfoot. It looked like a person, with a bunch of hair, big old huge person. And I was like, Bigfoot's supposed to be like an ape, like a gorilla, that walks on 2 feet. That's what, Leonard Nimoy told me on In Search Of. So I put it away for like 20, 25 years before I ever even told any stories. And one time right after it happened, we were all at a house party, and I walk in this room and Les was all talking to these guys, and he's all talking all about what happened that night. And he's all, oh, there's Dan right there. Come here, Dan, tell him about the monkey man. And I just went, oh yeah. And I turned around and I walked out. And it's like, I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to face it. I didn't even know what I saw. You know what I mean? It was like, my mind was messed up. And then when I seen on Facebook, the Bigfoot community, and I was seeing people that saw something that looked kind of human, then I started coming out with my story, and I realized that it was really Bigfoot that I saw, and man, like I say, it's like PTSD. I still, I've had trouble my whole life with like conflict and stuff, because there was no way out. It was really crazy.
Were you able to make out any details? I know it was dark when you saw the creature. It's probably more of a shadow, I'm guessing. Were you able to make any details out of it, or?
Oh yeah, it lit up that guy, and it was only like a couple seconds. He saw us and he went, oh, and he just went right behind that tree. As soon as she said something, he realized that we were seeing him. But I saw him for a good couple seconds, and I couldn't tell you what he looked like from the chest down, because I was just fixated on his face. It's like, anything, you just, if you see a person or something, you just look at their face first, and man, I always compare it to like a Native American, and I say that because of the beard pattern. There was kind of mutton chops, and kind of a sketchy little mustache, but it was, it wasn't like a full beard like I got, or like a Norwegian would have, it was more like what Native Americans usually have, like not a whole lot of beard, and it looked human, but it did have the big brow ridge like people talk about, and big wide nose and wide mouth. And one thing I noticed when he went, I noticed his teeth didn't look right. And I don't know if some people say they have more than one row of teeth or something, some of them. It might have been that, but I think it was more like some of his teeth were rotted, and they were kind of jagged and maybe darker, He was probably I would say about 50 years old compared to us. He wasn't like a real young buck, he was a big old dude, but, I didn't see any gray hair or anything, but I thought he was more like older, like around 50, like I say. He was really big. Oh, another thing, his hair, and I think it was his ears. But it looked like he was pointing up on the sides. Like, and people always say, was it a dog man or something? And I don't think so. I think he just had funky hair that was like stuck on his ears and sticking up, and, and it's really not common in Bigfoot, history or anything for that. I haven't heard that except for dogman type thing, but I'm sure it wasn't a dogman, because those facial features, looked like a person, like a really big dude. And, boy, I can't really say much more of that except for just the size, it was just like immense. It looked so big and really scary, but it wasn't grotesque like a monster. You know what I mean? It looked enough like a person that I didn't know exactly what the hell I saw,
Yeah. Well, as we get older, we get weird hair growing out of our ears too. So.
Right.
So you guys saw a couple juveniles, obviously, too. Those are the ones throwing the rocks at you, possibly, right?
Right. And I mean, me and the girls didn't see it. And that's another interesting thing about these Bigfoot sightings is we got a group of people. We got 5 people. The one girl, I can't remember her name. Sorry. She didn't go to my school. Susan went to my school, but I don't remember the other girl's name. She went to Lakeport, and she never saw anything. she experienced what we were all experiencing, and she was scared to death, and she saw the rocks come in, but she never saw a Bigfoot. But I saw, like down at the end of the road, I saw something, and then I saw that big guy. And then like Les, he saw the little one at the back of the rock, and then he saw the twins and the other one. And Michael saw the twins and the other one, but they didn't see the big one that Susan and I saw. So it's like, it's really and I like to explain it like, if you really think about it, when you're talking about a 360 degree, view, you're looking around, even if something's there looking at you, the chances of you seeing it are really, really, really slim. You have to be pretty much focused on like a 10-foot area in your vision to really see what's there. You know what I'm saying? So in fact, my buddy Ed Brown and I, he's my partner in Big Truth. When we were filming, we were trying to make this movie up in my area at the Sky Lakes Wilderness up by Mount McLaughlin. And there's this big pond, and I was on one side of the pond and he was on the other. And I just turned around and he hid in plain sight, and he had a red shirt on, but he was like, he had like a branch across the front of him or something and kind of standing in a tree, but that was it. He was like totally visible. And we tried it several times, and I have really good eyesight, or I did. I couldn't see him. I could never find him. And I knew he was there. I knew what I was looking for. He had a red shirt on, and I couldn't see him. And he was just, like I say, just a branch or something across him. And all of a sudden he'd raise his hand and I'd be like, oh my gosh, you're right there. So when people say it, people experience Bigfoot all the time, and it's just they hear something or they have rocks thrown, and people are like, well, how come you don't get a picture? It's like the chances of seeing them when they're there is really, really, really slim. And I've had a bunch, I've had like 3 times just fleeting glances where I saw them for just a second when I'm out there in the woods, and it's really hard to get the kind of sighting where you can pull your camera out and get it going, it's almost impossible.
Was that in Northern California?
The Pinnacle Rock thing, yeah, it's in Northern California, right next to Clear Lake, which is, about 100 miles north of San Francisco as the crow flies in the coastal range.
A lot of people don't understand how thick those woods are out there.
Oh yeah.
Dense. They don't get it. So.
Oh yeah, and the other place where I was talking about, Sky Lakes Wilderness area, it's, if you look at Google Maps, it's the biggest green area in the entire Cascades, because it's got Crater Lake National Park, and then that attaches to the Sky Lakes Wilderness area, and it encompasses a huge area where you can't go back there with any motorized vehicles or nothing. It's only horses, or hiking, and it's like Bigfoot's playground up in there. They can do whatever the heck they want. And, there's not as many sightings in Southern Oregon, but there's not as many people out in the woods. And that's the main reason. There's a lot of Bigfoot in Southern Oregon, by my estimation.
Dan, do you still talk to those friends that you had the encounter with? Any of them?
No, I don't. I mean, that was way back in high school. There's only like maybe 2 people or 3 people that I talk to still from back then, and we just lost over the years. And like I said, for that whole time where I wasn't interested in talking about it or whatever, I never seeked them out or anything I never tried to keep contact with them, over 30 years. So, they all just got lost.
I was curious if the ones that saw the juveniles throwing the rocks, if they noticed how they were throwing them. Were they throwing them overhanded, sidearm?
I think that's what they were saying, like kind of sidearm type throws, not like a baseball pitcher, but more kind of a sidearm type of deal. That's what they described to me.
Like a gorilla or a monkey would.
They can't throw overhand for some reason. Like if they throw something, it's sidearm. So people are thinking that Bigfoot do the same thing. There's a video out there that happened somewhere out west where a guy's standing somewhere in a park or something, and there's a hill with some trees and a forest, and it shows a Bigfoot. Have you seen that one? It shows a Bigfoot walking down, and he kind of gets behind a tree and he chucks a rock or something at him, sidearm from behind the tree.
Yeah, it's like a stick or whatever, and it hits the side of the house, and it makes a big bang. And yeah, that's a cool video. I mean, it's really not clear at all. It's like really pixelated, but you can see the size of it and the way it throws it. And I mean, I think that's a pretty authentic video myself. I really like that one.
go ahead and give us your next encounter if you want to.
A really interesting encounter happened in 2000. I can't remember, it was 18 or 19 in October. I was with a guy named Mike Jones in Southern Oregon. He's a good buddy of mine. We go out squatching together. And we decided we were going to walk from where we normally leave at 4 Mile Lake, right at the hips of Mount McLaughlin in the Sky Lakes Wilderness there. You can only drive to the one end of the lake, and we would walk all the way to the other end of the lake and do our squatching and stuff. But we decided to go way past that up into the actual Sky Lakes Basin. And it looked on the map like it was about 4 miles up, 2 miles across, and 4 miles back. So we thought we'd go the 4 miles up and the 2 miles across in one day. And then the next day, we were going to camp. And then the next day we'd just do the 4 miles back. Well, we didn't even make it halfway, and we had gone, but my buddy has a trail tracker thing, and it was 10.4 miles, and we weren't even halfway. And it took us all day, and we were dead. I mean, it was terrible. And on the way up there was all that land we covered. There was only one spot where we had anything that seemed like Bigfoot, and we kind of heard voices in the woods. And then after we left, we ate lunch there, and we could hear these voices talking. And then when we left, we could hear something like paralleling us and walking with us for a ways when we were leaving. And you can hear the footsteps, and then they stop when you stop. That's real familiar for a lot of Bigfoot people. But that was it all the way up there. And that was probably only about 3/4 or a mile from where we camped. So we went up over the ridge and down into this basin, and we camped. And we decided to just go straight back the way we came. We weren't going to try to make it all the way around. And I mean, we were so dead. We had these packs that were like 60 or 80 pounds. Mine was probably 60 and his was probably 80. It was crazy. And Mike's a big guy, but damn, we're not hikers. We're squatchers. We were stupid. But anyway, we left the tent there. We left our air mattresses and a bunch of the stuff that we took that we didn't really need. But, and we just figured we'd go back for that stuff, and we did. But we hiked out of there, and at the top of the hill, we were ready to call for help. Like, search and rescue, come help us. We're so dead. But we didn't do it. And we walked, and then we got to that spot that I was talking about. And just right past that spot, Mike starts saying, there's something watching us. I can feel it. Something's watching us. And I was like, I don't feel nothing. And I was walking ahead of him, maybe, 30 yards ahead of him. I was quite a ways ahead of him. We're just trudging down the trail, trying to get back to the truck. And then all of a sudden I started feeling it too, like I was being watched. So I acknowledged it, and we're walking along, and all of a sudden he goes, I just saw a branch move. And he pointed up the mountain, and I looked back at him, and then I looked right where he pointed. And sure enough, I saw this perfect silhouette of a Bigfoot. He was right in between these big trees, and it was really dark in there. It was all shadowy, but he didn't know that behind him, there was a tree that was just lit up by the sun, and it was all light green behind him. And so I see this perfect black silhouette, and I mean, like from the calves up, I see this perfect silhouette of this Bigfoot standing there watching me. And I just got the heebie-jeebies and the hair standing up on the back of my neck. It's like, and I told Mike, I said, I can see him and he's seeing me, and I think he knows I'm seeing him. I can feel it, and I said, come on. And it was the weirdest thing. As he's walking to me, which didn't take him very long, this Bigfoot starts going down like an elevator. And it was so slow that I couldn't even acknowledge it when I was just watching him. And just all of a sudden he was gone. His head was down in the bushes. And I was like, what the heck? And about that time, Mike got there, and I was like, dude, he's right there. I know he's right there. He just went down into the bushes right there in that spot in between those trees. And Mike was looking, and he goes, oh yeah, he's still there. I can feel him. He's watching us. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, well, let's wave at him. And I go, all right. So we both, right next to each other, we do this big overhand wave like this. And oh my God, that feeling of being watched, it went from like a 10 to 1,000. We could feel the fight or flight instinct from the Bigfoot when we waved at him, because he thought he was hidden. And all of a sudden he knew that we could see him, or he knew that we knew that he was there. And oh my gosh, it was the most intense thing. I've ever felt. It was crazy. And Mike felt the same exact thing. It was like we were connected with this Bigfoot. And this is not woo. This is like an instinctual thing. This is us running from saber-toothed tigers back in the day. This is an innate feeling in us when something big is watching us, something predatory, something that could kill us, you know. Then I think everybody has this sense. When it's Bigfoot, it's 10 times stronger than it is when you're, say, you ever been in a cafeteria and you're staring at the back of somebody's head and then all of a sudden they turn around and look right at you? It happens all the time. People can sense when somebody's looking at them, and it's the same thing. It's like I say, it's not woo, and it's not real scientific either. I don't know that there's a lot of proof scientifically that but I can tell you it's a thing. And, you know, maybe it's stronger in some people. You know, I know I'm an empath, and I might feel it stronger than some, but I think everybody could feel when something really big is looking at them, because it's become something that I depend on. And I talked about it in that very first story when I was 18, that I felt like I was being watched. And then when I get out in the forest with people, you know, back in like 2013, 2014, I get out in the woods and I would feel that feeling. And then next thing you know, we're getting rocks thrown at us and stuff. Then I learned to like trust it more. And I started telling people that, you know, I feel like they're watching us or whatever. And then the rocks get thrown, and then people are like, dude, how'd you do that? You know? And it's something that I think everybody feels it, but you got to trust it. When you feel that stuff, you know, when you feel something when you're out in the woods, you got to trust it. It might save your life, you know.
Did you guys ever go back to that spot, or did you ever go back to that spot after that?
No, never did. Never made it back up in there. It's a long ways up in there. And we meant to. We want to. You know, we wanted to get up in there and camp there where we ate lunch that day, and it's kind of an opened up spot. You know, we wanted to go up there and camp, see if something happens. It's still on the bucket list.
What about the first encounter? Did you guys ever go back to that one?
No, and that's also on the bucket list. In fact, I'd like to make that into a movie one of these days, because it's like an incredible story. It's really crazy. And me and my buddy, we've been talking about that, you know. Big Truth Productions, we've been working on movies for years. We're finally getting one done right now. It's being edited. It's this investigation out in Colorado that is not just Bigfoot, but it also involves human spirits and the gray aliens, and started with cattle mutilations. And it's really, really an intense, crazy story, like multifaceted deal. And it's almost, the editing is close to being a full movie, you know, and then we still got to, you know, put in the music and all that, but we're getting there, you know, so that's going to be cool when that comes out. And yeah, and I didn't really talk too much about Big Truth. Ed Brown is a big part of Big Truth. We started doing interviews after I did my video series. Then I got together with Ed, and we started doing interviews with all the big names. You know, we did Bob Gimlin a couple times. We've done Cliff Brockman, and you know, just all kinds. Ken Gerhart. We did a bunch of big names in the community, and it was called Sit Down with Ed Brown, and those are all available on my Big Truth YouTube channel. And you know, we also did some encounter interviews with people, just regular people with their encounters, and those are really cool too. So if you want to check it out, it's a Big Truth on YouTube. We haven't done a whole lot on there recently. It's mostly the old stuff. And then when we started trying to make movies out there, we just kind of held everything to our breast and didn't really release much stuff, you know. And so there's a little time there, you know, the last couple of years where there isn't a whole lot of content, but there's a lot of stuff from earlier out there.
Yeah, we'll definitely check it out, and I'm sure our listeners will too.
For sure.
Yeah, I can imagine if you guys are making a movie or documentary, yeah, you're definitely busy.
Yeah. There's a lot to it, you know.
Do you have a name for it picked out?
The one that we're working on right now is called Friends in the Sky, and it's called The Investigation at Mutilation Ranch.
All right.
And it's good, man. You're gonna love it. It's pretty crazy.
Any idea what platform it's going to be on when you release it? It's going to be on YouTube.
We don't know. We don't know right now. You know, we just don't know. I hate to speculate at this point and start talking out my butt.
you're gonna have to let us know so we can let everybody else know that listens to the show, and
I definitely will.
get you some traffic, get that movie watched.
And if you want to follow me, I'll be releasing like a trailer and stuff here, pretty soon. And we'll have release dates and all that good stuff.
How long have you guys been doing Big Truth on YouTube?
Since 2011, I believe, maybe 2012. I think I started in 2011. And it's weird how things develop. I was, God, I think it was 5-6 years ago at least. No, it was even more than that. God, it was like 8 or 9 years ago. I was out in the field with Adam Davis and Russell Accord and my buddy Ed Brown and a guy named Kirk Brown. And that was after, I don't know if you're familiar with Adam Davis. He had some really crazy experiences at the Southern Oregon habituation area. And I went there with them, and we had some crazy stuff happen. I mean, Kirk Brown saw a Bigfoot about 9 feet tall, for one. He saw it in the night vision. I was right with him. And he just told me to back up and go back to camp. We were just right outside camp. And he came back. He was shaking. He was freaked out. But we had some strange things happen. Like there was 4 of us. It was me, Kirk Brown, Ed Brown, and Adam Davis. We're right outside camp looking into the forest. And 2 of us had these high-tech military goggles, night vision, where all you can see is green and black and white in those things. And then 2 of us were just standing with these guys. And what we used to do, those things stick out from your face like a foot. So we would have a guy guide the guy with the goggles, and we wouldn't walk really far because they were really expensive. And so we'd have a guy put his hand on his shoulder and just kind of make sure he didn't run into a tree or fall down or whatever, And so the 4 of us are out there, not too far from camp, like I say, and we all saw this thing flash. It was like all of a sudden in the middle of the air out there in the trees and stuff, there was like a fire in the air all of a sudden, like a flash of orange. It opened up and flashed like several different directions at once, and then it just closed back up and went away. And the craziest thing was, all 4 of us saw it. The 2 guys that were wearing the glasses, they actually saw it in orange. And like I said, it's like impossible to see orange through those glasses. It's only green, black, and white. And they actually saw orange, an orange flash. So that was nuts. And there was another time when Russell Accord saw something open up right where Adam had his experience where he said he saw a portal open up and these little guys came out. Right in that area, it's right in the driving into Soha. And we were all sitting around, and Russell had those glasses on, and he was looking down there. And he's all, "Do you guys see that? Do you see it?" And we're like, "No." And none of us could see anything. And he said, "You don't see that?" And there was like a light right in the middle of the drive up there. And he said it was almost like a plate was like this and then turned sideways and back, because it was just a sliver of light. And then it opened up like around for just a second, and then it went back and it disappeared. And we had some great sounds that we heard, and we found some a nice trackway right before we left that was something that was watching us just right on the other side of the bushes from us. It was and something happened where something was messing with us, trying to take away our strengths. It was the weirdest thing. We were there for like 5 days, and it was about 3 days in, and me and Kirk Brown both were like, I felt like I hit a wall when I get to the side of the camp. It was like that feeling of being watched or whatever was just like so strong. It's like it stopped me from wanting to go forward. And it wasn't like literally like physically stopped me, but just mentally, it's just like, whoa, and it would hit me really hard every time I just try to walk out of camp. And it was really messing with me, and it was really messing with Kirk bad. He was sitting there with like tear rolling down his eyes, and then he started explaining this to everybody. And and he was really emotional. And then I started telling people that I was kind of feeling the same way. And I got really emotional too. And I didn't even feel like I was feeling emotional, you know what I mean? But when I started talking about it, and it was really like messing with us. And Russell, he was like there for our security, he was ex-military. He had, the weapons and stuff, and him and Kirk both ex-military. And he was like kind of in a trance, just sitting in the chair. And Adam Davis went up and he was like waving his hand in front of his face and stuff. And it's like something just totally zapped all his energy and made him like where he was like really out of it. And he kind of snapped out of it, but he was like, I don't remember his exact words, but it was something like, I'm just not feeling right or something like that. And it was just and then like Ed and Adam, neither one really expressed anything big, but it was like they were taking away our strengths, I'm like fearless, generally, as long as I got people with me, I got balls as big as bowling balls. But when I'm all by myself, I can get scared because I've been really scared before when I was all by myself. And that's something that you don't want to do, don't ever go out by yourself. It's just a bad idea. You break a leg or something and end up like stranded out in the woods. It's just not a good idea to go by yourself anytime. But especially if you've ever really been scared, I was out one time, I was 2 miles from my truck and, man, I was having that feeling of being watched like really, really bad. And I was all alone and I knew that I was all alone. I mean, I was really alone. When I got into the campground where I parked, there was nobody there. So I was like way out there, really in a desolate place, all alone. And then I even got some, cool blob squatches in my pictures that day when, I was taking pictures of like, stick structures and stuff that I saw. And in the background, there's something up in this tree and it's actually moving in the different pictures. It looked like there was a baby on its back, and I'm pretty sure it was a Sasquatch. And that's on my channel. You can watch the possible Sasquatch and Dogman video that's in my and I'm pretty sure it's on my Sasquatch investigations tab. And just make sure you watch it in 1080p though. I rendered it in 1080p, and if you watch it in the standard deal that they just started up with, you'll never see anything. But if you watch it in 1080p, you can possibly see some stuff in there. That's pretty good.
Yeah, we'll definitely check that out. I'm pretty excited to see that, actually.
Oh, yeah, me too.
So back to your first encounter, you said it looked Native American. Would you say it was more human than animal?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was, I would speculate that there's some kind of an early human or an early cousin of humans, cousins of Neanderthal, Cro-Magnon, whatever, somewhere in there was a lost line, possibly, and I mean, got all kinds of theories about what Bigfoot is, and I'm sure everybody does. There's so much weirdness and so much stuff going on when it comes to Bigfoot. And, I mean, we got a psychic out there in Colorado, and something was making our EMF meters just go off, and you got to be like practically touching the thing to make it go off. And she said it was a Sasquatch, and we didn't see any Sasquatch right there. So, I mean, and she's really, really good. She's really, really, really good. So it opens up a lot of questions, and there's a lot of speculation, and especially talking to human spirits and aliens and Bigfoot. And, kind of my theory is that we humans might be the outliers. Our planet and our reality might be the weird one, the different one. And all those other things, human spirits, Bigfoot, aliens, they might live all on the same plane, and they can interact with our world and come and go. And that's just one theory. I also have a theory about Bigfoot that they're very much like humans, and we're so diverse. I would think that even if there is interdimensional Bigfoot, I still believe there's flesh and blood Bigfoot, absolutely 100% flesh and blood that can't move between dimensions. I think there's probably everything in between, and in one tribe or whatever, there might be one that's got like, can move interdimensionally or whatever. And then, that would be like the witch doctor or whatever of the tribe, the one with the power, and then I'm sure there's whole tribes that can move between dimensions and do whatever and cloak and all that. And then there's whole tribes that are just like, they're the real ancestors or whatever, God knows there's so many different, possibilities, and nobody knows until we know. And, it's really hard to know because, they seem to be really hard to catch. So, it's one thing I do know is that I don't know. That's it.
Well, that's what I always say too, or we always say on the show, is all we have are opinions. nobody knows
That's
for
it.
sure. I mean, we're all just speculating right now until you actually go out in the woods and either sit down with one and talk to them, or somebody shoots one and brings it in. Which
Absolutely.
I hope doesn't happen, but
Right. Yeah, I'm no kill, man, but I'm also a realist, and I realize in order for science to accept it, um, there might have to be a body at some point. I think the problem is that every time it comes back unknown animal or something, it's just unknown animal. And there's no place where we're collecting all these samples and testing them against each other to see if there's actually something to this unknown, these unknown samples. You know what I mean? And I know we're coming a long ways. I mean, now you can get, we actually have a sample that's going to go to a lab at a university here pretty soon, and it's from a window, and it's like a face impression. It's a nose and the face, and you can actually pull DNA off of like the oils off of the face. Or there's a lot of ways now that if you collect the DNA, they can actually pull it out, and it's amazing, really. You used to think that you had to have a dang piece of fresh poop or a real good hair sample or something, but it's amazing now. They can test the water and know all the animals that are in the water now. I mean, it's amazing what they've done with DNA. But the thing is, it's always unknown. And there's nothing to test that unknown against to see if it's, if all those unknowns is one thing. So we almost have to have a real sample so that we can say this is a Bigfoot, and then it's something to compare the samples to so that they know that it's a Bigfoot sample. Because right now we're still like up in the air, really. When it's unknown, it's totally indefinitive. They don't know at all what, and they're not going to ever say that's Bigfoot if it's an unknown sample, so we're kind of in a catch-22 right now with DNA.
I think they're a tribe of, I don't want to say people, but they're a tribe of living beings. I think they have their own language. They live in family units. They're one of the closest things, I guess, to a human that there could be right now, besides apes, right? But if these things can talk, like you talk about the Sierra sounds and the communication and the chatter, if they've got that form of communication, they're pretty smart.
Right. Yeah, that shows a lot of intelligence. Yes, sir.
I don't know of any other creature on this earth that, besides birds whistling at each other, but to form words and everything, I don't know that there's really any other creatures on this planet that does that besides humans.
Right. And they're highly specialized. They're in the forest 24/7. We think we're so smart, but these guys hunting Bigfoot or whatever, thinking they're going to go out and catch Bigfoot. Dude, they know when we're miles away on our way, It's so silly to be like trying to be quiet and sneak up on Bigfoot, because there's just no way that's going to happen. The only way to ever see them is if you're out there just having a good time. That's what that's what I do, man. I'm just talking to people and just hiking and just having a good time. And, there's been times when I'll just be sitting there just BSing with my buddy, sitting around a truck or something, we gave up. We walked down there, nothing happened. We walked over there, nothing happened, and then we're just standing there at the truck. And next thing you know, there's little rocks landing next to us and rolling up to us. And we're going, whoa, what's going on? And you can hear them flying through the blackberry bushes, the rocks. And it's like, all of a sudden you're having an experience. And you don't, like I say, hunting them is kind of silly. It's counterproductive. It really is, because all they're going to do is stay the hell away from you, And that's my advice to somebody that's out there trying to actually get a glimpse or something. Just be yourself. And another thing that it used to work really good for me, and I kind of got away from it when, especially when I started going out with other researchers and kind of using their methods and going along with them in their area type thing. But man, back in the day, I used to tell everybody on our way in to try to like clear their mind of all the bad stuff and just try to have like the mind of like a childlike mind, and try to get rid of all the violence and war, and just try to have like an innocence and enjoy nature and just enjoy it and just have a good time. And, because I don't know if they can read your mind, but I'm sure they can read your intentions, and if you're out there with a gun, they know it. Somehow they know. And, if you're out there hunting them, if you're trying to get them, if you're going to get them on camera and stuff, you're not going to have a whole lot going on, because I swear they can read your intentions. And if you have, like I say, you just act like you're just having a good time and just go out there and enjoy nature and open yourself up to nature, and, try to get all the negative stuff out, because if they sense something negative in you, then they're going to avoid you. You know what I mean? And I've had a lot of, just, like I said, fleeting glance type things, which isn't great, but it's better than no sighting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're creatures that live in the mountains and the woods, and we're creatures that live in the valleys and the plains. That's what we were adapted for. That's what our bodies were made for. We're not made to run around in the woods barefoot and chasing
No,
down deer and everything.
no. And I mean, I don't care if you're, Bear Grylls or whatever. Nobody is going to be as good out in the forest as Sasquatch when they live out there 24/7, and they're people, I don't know if they can cloak or whatever, but I do know that they can disappear. And I think a lot of that is just, they are so stealthy and so smart, and like, they're the ninjas of the forest. They can get, they can get away
They know
from
how to
you.
use their surroundings.
Exactly. And they'll probably climb a tree, and you're still looking for them on the ground. There's lots of ways that they get away, and they seem to be like silent too. If they want to be, they can move around without making any noise, or they can sound like an elephant. It's just, it depends on what they want out of the situation. There's those bluff charges. They're trying to get you the hell out of there. But one thing I've noticed, man, through Big Truth, I've either read or watched videos or heard people's accounts. I've thousands of stories, thousands. And Bigfoot is never aggressive unless people are shooting at him with a gun. That's every story that I ever heard where Bigfoot's aggressive. They've been shot at already when they're aggressive. So, that's why I got big balls, when I go out to squatching, because I really truly believe that they're not going to hurt me. And I've also been in situations where I know if they wanted to, I could have been dead, but they didn't even let me see them, but they've had every opportunity, if they wanted to be aggressive and scare the living daylights out of me or whatever. But I never carry a gun, and like I said, I always try to go in there with good intentions, and I've never had any Bigfoot be aggressive. I've had trees pushed over towards me, but they were still far enough away where it wasn't going to hit me. It was just a move to distraction. Distraction is huge. When they're throwing rocks, they're trying to distract you. You're probably about ready to walk right up on one when a rock's coming from a different direction. Or, one thing we always do is we go, "Where's that rock? What happened? What?" You hear it hit and whatever, and you're looking for the rock. That gives them every opportunity to get away. We're so stupid, Where's the rock? Where's the rock? It's like, it's just a freaking rock, man. Look for the Bigfoot, And then you make a plan. It's like, I had this plan for years where when a rock's thrown, we're just going to keep walking because we're probably ready to walk right up on them, But every single time in the field when a rock's thrown, everybody stops. And
Well,
I mean, you can plan all day,
human nature, man.
I used to have my camera running like the whole time. I had all these batteries, and I'd have the camera running the whole time I was out there. And then when I don't have the camera running, when it goes dead or something, that's when something will happen. When I see something, and that always happens, man. That happened on my dash cam. I have a dash cam. I drive for a living. I drive all over the country. I drive 100,000 miles every 6 months, and I saw this thing cross the road. It was like a couple hours after my dash cam fell off because I was on this really bumpy road. And instead of trying to put it back up there, driving down the road, I just put it in the console, and I was like, "Oh, I'll put that up later." And sure enough, I was like going on this like backwoods highway. I believe it was right on the Florida-Georgia border. And I was just going into Georgia from Florida. And this thing goes across the road out of ways. But it was like the size of a damn Volkswagen. Went across the road. I swear it was like 70 miles an hour. And all I seen was just legs. And it was on all fours. But this thing, I mean, it reminded me of the Arkansas Razorback. The logo with the pig that's just like running. His legs are behind him. That's what this thing was doing going across the road. And it was canine. It was it was absolutely huge. Had big old ears, big snout. I mean, it was totally like a dog, but it was I don't know what the hell it was. And of course, my dash cam wasn't on, and I sure wish it was, because that was something. It looked like After that, I have never been into dog man, because I don't like to bring things into my life that I don't want to really face. So I never really tried to even think about dog man. Man, it sure sounds like what a lot of people describe, that really big dog man running. It's just crazy, man, crazy. But it's always when you don't have camera, and you're set up. You got your camera all the time, thousands of miles, but right then when I needed it, I didn't have it. Even when you do have your stuff on, sometimes you miss stuff. I heard this huge yell, like the Ohio howl type thing, going off of one mountain and echoing off the other mountain, and it was just intense. And I had recorders out at the time, but basically the signature wasn't big enough on there for me to find it. It might be there somewhere, but I looked and looked and looked and looked, could never find it. And that's another good clue for anybody out there. If you're trying to record something, if you hear something when you're out in the woods, go walk over to your recorder and say, hey, 7:28 p.m. or whatever. And then when you go back and you look, you can see that signature go up right there, and then you can pinpoint the sound that you heard. I think that's a great piece of advice, man, because
that is
that's one of the hard things about this is you get all this equipment, you get all these cameras, recorders, and you end up with hours of digital information, and who's going to review it all? And I ran into that. That's a big problem for me personally. And I have done the gamut. I had a nice drone. I've had all kinds of cameras and trail cams, everything that you could think of for Bigfoot. And man, for the last few years, all I ever do is I take my phone. I got a nice Samsung S22. It's got a great camera on it. It's better than any camera that I can buy. It costs thousands of dollars to have a camera like this camera on my phone. And it's just that whole thing about the data. And if I had an assistant that could go over all my stuff, that would be great. I would love to be able to just record all the time. But man, it's a real problem when I'm the one that has to do it. I'm not that guy,
We know. Yes, we definitely.
Yeah, we know. We're going through that too.
Well, Dan, we want to thank you for being on the show with us tonight and telling us your awesome encounters and everything that you had there with Big Truth and all that.
Yeah,
well, awesome. Sure. Thanks a lot for having me. I sure appreciate it, guys.
Definitely. We'll be sure to check out your YouTube Big Truth, and I'm sure our listeners will too. And if you get out there and you see anything else, man, reach out to us and we'll get you back on.
All right. Sounds great, man.
Yeah,
thanks a lot again.
Stay in touch. Let us know when that movie's coming out. We'll get you back on and we'll do a whole other episode.
Yeah, you bet, man. Awesome. You bet. Once I got a trailer or something, I'll hook you up.
Absolutely. That'd be great.
All right, Dan. Guys. Stay in touch, buddy. Thanks again.
All right. Thank you. All right. Bye.
Awesome encounter. Seeing those Bigfoot, having them throw the rocks, the juveniles. Had a whole family out there playing around with them.
A whole bunch of them, yeah. I think they were just having fun with them.
Can you imagine how terrifying that would have been? They couldn't leave. They had no lights.
No lights on the Jeep.
I can't even. Yeah, they couldn't. Like you said, we couldn't go anywhere. Where are we going to go?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great encounter. I'm glad we got Dan on and talked to him.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait to get him back on and talk about his movie.
Exactly. Yeah, he'll reach out to us and we'll get him back on and talk about that. I'm always up for a new documentary.
Oh yeah, me too.
You guys be sure to check out Big Truth on YouTube. That's Dan Lindholm. Guys, thanks for being here with us. Thanks for listening. We appreciate you always.
Yeah, man. Always fun. Always learning.
Ryan, I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you for being here with me.
Yeah, man.
Let's take off. What do you say?
Yep. See ya.